During Georgetown's first 8 years, neighborhood children had to travel south a mile or more to Van Asselt School. In 1898, Georgetown citizens voted overwhelmingly in favor of starting their own school. The first Georgetown school was taught by one teacher in an old store building owned by Mrs. Cross. The store was located at the foot of the old Lucille Street Bridge. The store was demolished in 1947 and became the site of Vraydell Brothers Union Oil Station, and now it's the site of the Elysian Brewing Company. After a few months at the old store building with Mrs. Cross, the burgeoning classroom was forced to relocate across the street to Higgins Hall. And due to so many children, the new space became inadequate, so the school only served the first 3 grades. The older students had to attend Van Asselt or South Seattle. In 1900, a new school was developed and doubled in size immediately, providing a total of 4 classrooms. It was named the Mueller School after John Mueller, who was the head of the school board and also who happened to be the mayor, the superintendent at the brewery, and a volunteer on the fire department. Tonight you will learn what it was like to be in Georgetown's first school. And if you see any ghostly students mingling around the classroom tonight, please refrain from any unnecessary gasps or shrieks. Just because your fathers work in the breweries or the sawmills doesn't mean you can arrive late, stinking of beer and sweat. Take your seats, students, and please remove your hat. I'm Mrs. Cross, the only teacher in Georgetown. Today is October 18th, 1898. Welcome to my store and my duty to provide Georgetown students with a basic education. Attention, class. It's time for our roll call. Please stand and introduce yourself.
I'm Scarlett, and I lived upon Estelle Street, and I died from the flu.
Hi, I'm Winston, and I was run over by a speeding motor car on my birthday by the mayor's house.
And I'm Rachel, and I fell out of my canoe into the river and got swept away.
Class, please take your seats. No one wants to hear about your terrible misfortunes. Today's lesson is all about the early days of Georgetown and the importance of an education in our community. Please prepare your slates for taking notes. On November 11th, 1889, Washington Territory became Washington State and ratified its Constitution. Article 9 states that it is the paramount duty of the state to make ample provision for the education of all children residing within its borders without distinction or preference on account of race, color, caste, or sex. Here in Georgetown, we have always tried to make ample provision for the education of our children, but you must know it's never been easy. And our neighborhood has been plagued with schools opening and closing, schools without water, schools without money, and pitiful children dying of every known injury and illness. Children, student, who was the first settler family to arrive in the Duwamish River Valley, and when did they arrive?
Luther Collins and his family arrived in the Duwamish Valley in 1850. And the town of Duwamish was established in early 1852.
Very good. And who knows how our city of Georgetown got its name?
In 1890, Julius Horton settled on 2 square miles along the Duwamish River and named the area after his son George.
Correct. And George completed medical school that year, and his brother Dexter became a noted Seattle banker. What a wonderful family those Hortons are. Our children are ready for their ghostly recess. These ghost children, they just never grow up. They're such a handful, and I'm here doing my paramount duty to give them a basic education for all eternity.
So one of the things you need to know that this was finished in 1909. So the railroad kicked us out of there in 1906. We built this in 1909. But shortly thereafter, there was a big kerfuffle, and the community was divided, and they had to take a vote. So we're going to hear from some community folks about that vote. Get a little closer. They're not going to bite you. They're not really ghosts.
Step forward.
It's very quiet.
I'm glad to see that everybody's here to educate themselves on the most important issue of the day, and that is whether Georgetown should join with Seattle for a brighter future. I, as a businessman, say that we must join forces with Seattle for improved infrastructure, Cedar River water, an improved fire department, not like the inadequate fire department we have now, an accountable, strong police force. And as far as those out-of-control saloons, open 24 hours a day, flogging their evil alcohol, and operating as nothing more than brothels, with scantily clad women hanging out windows and on the balconies. Oh, no, we need to shut those businesses down right away. Oh.
Well, Mr. Business Interests, those services sound wonderful, but they don't come for free. There's a price to pay for those services. We will lose our freedom here, our freedom to make our own laws. We have a thriving economy here in Georgetown. My name is Annie Horton. I plotted this land with my husband. We named this town after our son, George. He is a well-respected doctor. He studied law too. Anyway, back to the thriving economy that we have. We have wonderful businesses here, and those laws in Seattle will put a damper on what we can do here in Georgetown. Forget that, Mr. Business Interests. Why, on Sundays is race day, and people like to go out after the races to our fine establishments and have a cup of tea. Now, they wouldn't be allowed to have that cup of tea if we annexed with Seattle, because there's a law against drinking. No alcohol on Sundays. Certainly cause a problem. Certainly cause a problem. And moreover, the annexation movement has been seen over at the county poor farm, listing able-bodied men to vote in the name of the recently deceased who have not been purged of the voter roll. Oh, voter fraud!
Excuse me, are you suggesting that the poor should not be allowed to vote? Isn't that rich coming from a woman pushing for women to have the vote? Talk about election fraud. And let me also tell you, do you deny, Ms. Horton, that you bribed 2 city council members to effect the sale of a worthless piece of your own property to the city of Georgetown for $200?
Well, my legal counsel has advised me not to talk about certain things. Is it business interests? But keep in mind, the right for women to vote is coming up. In fact, if we could vote